Hi guys, MrRoflWaffles here. Today I want to talk to you all about an Easter egg that's been solved on 9 recently by several members of the community who've been working on a bunch of Easter eggs, and they've been doing a fantastic job. I want to shout them out right at the beginning of this video. I'm going to start off with Weebrow, or Weebro, who has created the post that outlines this Easter egg solve, and also all the people that Weebrow thanks. So that's Certain Personio for helping with the cryptography part of this, ZA0820, who I actually shouted out in my video the other day, Savage Sanchez, who I also shouted out the other day, and Icy Rizard for helping Weebrow through it. It's obviously always a team effort when these things get solved, and it's great to see people coming together and getting them done, so congratulations guys. The egg itself revolves around the scraps of paper on 9 that you have probably seen in your game. I've been getting quite literally hundreds of tweets about these things saying, hey Milo, I found a cipher, can you figure out what it says? And each one will have the letters HIP written all over it. It'll be like HIP and then a load of other text and then another HIP, load of other text, HIP. And it basically turns out that HIP is a specific astronomical catalog. It's the Hipparcos catalog, which means that all of these references are references to celestial bodies. We can use the information on those notes to essentially look up into a computer-generated version of the sky and map out our own constellations. Basically, each bit of paper is giving us a constellation. And where normally a constellation in the sky would be made by joining stars together and you would end up with something that looks like an animal or something along those lines, or at least they're meant to. That's why you've got Ursa Major, Ursa Minor, that's the big bear and the small bear, things like that. In this case, instead of animals or objects or anything along those lines, each bit of paper, when translated into a constellation, that's a weird sentence to say, gives us a letter. And then we can combine all of the bits of paper together and we actually end up with a message. The message says, "The library must stay hidden." This is an image provided by the OP who I mentioned at the beginning of the post, Weebrow, which shows you what it looks like when you write out all of this into the sky. And the first thing I want to say here, before we get into why this is really, really interesting, is that I think this is just a super cool Easter egg, man. Like, we've had ciphers in the past, and I always cover the ciphers and their solutions and everything like that because I think that they're always really interesting and I love the story too, and so it's a good combination. But this is just in another category where I look at this as an Easter egg and I'm like, man, they really wrote a message in the stars for us to read by making our own dot-to-dot constellation in space. That's pretty cool, man. Like, that is pretty cool stuff. And it's crazy because years ago, before Black Ops 3 came out, Jason was talking to me at Gamescom, and I remember really clearly, so clearly, walking back from my first ever really long conversation with him. We basically stayed up all night talking, me and Jason, in this bar in Germany, and we're walking back to where both of our hotels are, and Jason's like, yeah, I really wanted to do this one cipher this one time where it would be some kind of texture and you'd have to look at it and it would be basically a constellation and you would have to know that it was a constellation and then you'd have to like do something in space and that would give you the message somehow. And I remember so clearly saying to him at the time, yo, don't tell me too much about it because this sounds cool as hell. Save it for a game sometime. Like, just do it sometime, dude. That sounds awesome. And at the time he was like, well, it might be a bit hard for the community to solve. But then throughout Black Ops 3, he obviously did loads of crazy ciphers. And I guess that gave him the confidence to do something like this. And I mean, it's been cracked pretty fast. And I think that it's just fantastic, man. I really, really like where they went with this. Now, please don't click off the video because we have some really, really cool insights to jump into here about what this all means. There are other scraps of paper in the world which don't contribute to that HIP Hipparcos catalog message. They're not part of the message that says the library must stay hidden. Instead, they basically give us a date and coordinates pointing us to the city of Alexandria in Egypt. Now, that is really rather suspicious that those are there because Alexandria is famous for its great library. And so we can combine those two pieces of information and essentially get some really clear ideas about what exactly the story relevance is of all of these ciphers. I'm going to zoom through a bit of info about that great library now, so you can get a feel for why it's interesting, why you should care, because I get it. I, for a long time, found it really hard to get interested in, like, really ancient history. I was just like, well, if it's not relevant to now, I'm not really that bothered. But certainly in the last year or two, it's really started growing on me, and I'm going to try and make it sound really interesting for you guys as well, so that you can get invested and you can basically enjoy this as much as I currently am, because I think there's a lot of really interesting stuff to play with in your head here. So, the Great Library of Alexandria. It was established in around 250 BC, which means 250 years before Christ, that's what the BC stands for, in Alexandria, Egypt. It was one of the largest and most significant libraries of the ancient world when it was established, and it was part of a larger research institution called the Museon, which was dedicated to the Muses, which are the 9 goddesses of the arts. Now, funnily enough, we're playing on a zombies map called 9, and there are 9 muses here, which this institution, the Museon, is dedicated to. Interesting. Once built, the Great Library quickly acquired a large number of papyrus scrolls. That's basically old parchment paper that would be used to write on rather than sort of the regular books that we see today. This was because the kings who oversaw the library and its construction had really aggressive policies for basically procuring texts from other nations and things like that. It's unknown precisely how many scrolls were actually in the library at a given time, because it's ancient history, right? But estimates range from 40,000 to 400,000 at its peak. Now, because of this, or at least in part because of this, Alexandria, the city, came to be regarded as the capital of knowledge and learning on the planet. The library's position in the world, despite the fact that it made Alexandria the capital of knowledge, was not really as stable as you might think, and over time, it actually faced several gradual setbacks. The best known setback revolves around Julius Caesar himself. In 48 BC, during a civil war that Caesar was embroiled in, Caesar was besieged at Alexandria. His soldiers had to set fire to his own ships while trying to clear the wharves to block a fleet of ships belonging to Cleopatra's brother, Ptolemy XIV. This fire spread to other parts of the city near the docks because a lot of the stuff was made of wood back then, and that caused considerable devastation. A Roman philosopher called Seneca the Younger quotes Livy's Ab Urb Condita Libri, which I guess is one of the old texts, which was written between 63 and 14 BC, as saying that the fire started by Caesar destroyed 40,000 scrolls from the Library of Alexandria, which is a crazy large number, seeing as we just said that at one point, estimates were ranging from 40,000 to 400k as to the number of scrolls that they actually had total. So 40k is a significant chunk to lose here. Now, since then, scholars have interpreted other accounts of the fire to indicate that the library itself might not have been destroyed fully, but it might have instead been a warehouse near the library that contained all of those scrolls as like a second storage location, and that's what was lost in the fire. Regardless though, we can be fairly confident about 2 things. 1, the fire damaged the library, and 2, lots of knowledge and scrolls and information was lost because of it. There were other setbacks as well, and generally, under the Romans, the success of the library dwindled and it eventually basically disappeared. It wasn't just one freak event that did it, but rather the passage of time wore it down and then it was no more. Now then, the interesting thing that I think is absolutely being played with here is that scattered references indicate that sometime in the 4th century, an institution known as the Museon, which is exactly what we were hearing before. The Museon was the research institution which the Great Library was established as a part of. This institution may have been re-established at a different location somewhere in Alexandria. But the key detail here is that nothing is known about the characteristics of that organization. It's a mystery, and we don't know details about where exactly or why exactly that library was re-established, or rather, not the library, sorry, the research institution, the kind of governing body, if you will. why that was reestablished elsewhere, and what the details are, we just don't know. And so we get into a situation where in the map, when we're playing 9 and we get to that end cutscene, we see that this priest is clearly seeking power in some way. And we know that Prima Materia, this blackish material that is all over Voyage of Despair, and also here and there, very rarely though, in 9, is extremely important to that quest for power. This priest could well be looking for this re-established library, because the library might contain records or information about Prima Materia that he needs in order to get his way and either get more power or complete some nefarious goal. We see murals in the walls on 9, which give us an indication about just how significant Prima Materia is, and the radios on the map also help flesh that idea out. And so it's a perfect fit, in my opinion, for this Library of Alexandria, which our coordinates pointed to, which burned down, and which was then basically re-established elsewhere under the re-establishment of this museum, this 9 Muses research body. That library is a perfect fit as being the library that must stay hidden with our message written in the stars. Someone is trying to protect the re-established library, or indeed the Great Library itself, from the priest, from whatever cult it is that through history is trying to attain power using the artifact and take a hold of history for their own benefit. I think it's a fantastic fit, and I've got to say, there are also some really awesome comments on the thread for this Exolution that I want to get to now. I'm going to shout out the people that made these comments. So Shushu.Mumu says, the library was dedicated to the Muses, as we said. The 9th Muse was called Urania, goddess of astronomy, and was often represented by a globe or compass. Statues of Urania can be found in the Zeus Temple. On top of that, Dinocrates was the architect for the library, and his other works include several city plans and temples in Helphi, Delos, and other Greek cities. We suspect that our characters are in Delphi at one of these temples. And Weether Turnin on the thread then goes on to say, what if the library is what we're actually seeing when we look through the portal of the Pack-a-Punch? In the past, the workings of the Pack-a-Punch has always been a bit of a mystery. I mean, in some maps it's just a machine, in other maps it's a portal to another dimension. I mean, think of Shadows of Evil. But we don't know what this new design that we've seen in both Chaos Story maps is really indicating. However, what if it is a portal to the library, or a portal to that dimension, or whatever? And therefore, in the end cutscene, when the priest reaches into that portal thing, maybe he is trying to secure something from the library, or he's trying to reach out and break some kind of protective shield so that he can get there and find its location. We might be preventing him in that cutscene from actually getting his way and managing to get that location, and therefore we may be following the wishes of this message in the stars that tells us that the library's location must stay hidden. We are helping it to do so by completing the trial that we do in 9. All of these ideas are definitely something that we're going to have to play with more as the year goes on, but for now, I want to just get this video uploaded so we can all start thinking about it. This egg was solved a couple days ago, and I've been thinking about what it could mean, and I've already realized that there's a million different possibilities as to where this could go, but slowly but surely we'll build up the information about the Chaos Story, and we'll hopefully get a pretty good narrative built up as to what's actually happening. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this Chaos Story video. I think it's a really cool Easter egg, but I know there's not as much interest in Chaos as there is in the Ether story from the last 10 years of Zombies. So if you guys have enjoyed this, please leave a like on the video and show some support if you are a Chaos fan. And if there's enough support, I'll try and make sure that I get some other Chaos Story videos out this week, because there is some really cool stuff in here that would be fun to cover if there is interest. Alright, thanks for watching guys. I've been MrRoflWaffles. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.